Welcome back. You're watching us here on Bazaar Morning Call. The GIFT Nifty indicating a mildly negative start, but that's really nothing given the sort of outperformance that India has seen. 2,100 points from the lows. The Nifty Bank leading the rally out here as well. Prakash Diwan joins in now. Prakash, good morning. It's the start of a fresh new week, but we had a bunch of news flow over the weekend as well. There was Infosys that came out with the numbers. We had HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, and a bunch of these mid-cap IT names as well. So I'd like you to, weigh in on your opinion with HDFC Bank, point number one. Can the outperformance continue? And secondly is Infosys. Do you think the weakness is in the price?
Good morning, Mangalam. So, I think the today's session is going to be dominated by the salience in the private sector banks. That's already evident. And remember, this week you also have Axis announcing its numbers. So there will be a lot of expectations built in. And what these numbers tell you is that look at where the setup, where these banks kind of find themselves in the setup. You have cost of funds likely to come down. You have NPAs that have probably roughed out. You also have the fact that some of the banks like ICICI had retail loan books growing, which is very helpful because the margins are much better. NIMs have kind of steadied themselves in this band. So from here on, the market will look like very positively at allocating more money to these banks, and I think that will also benefit some of the largest PSU bank because their cost of funds has always been an advantage. And then I say the largest bank will probably be just the top three, which is SBI, BOB, Can Bank. But you will have a lot of the smaller private sector banks start participating in this reset on the allocation part. So it's just going to be fairly good for financials. And while the BFSI vertical starts attracting attention and capital, remember you have even the geo financial numbers have come, which in this challenging environment are pretty good. Especially the top line growth, they've managed to start flexing. And remember, this is just the beginning. There could be a big scale up going forward. So I'm quite positive on the space as a whole. And my sense is Bank Nifty will probably lead the charge for whatever up move potentially is there on the Nifty. You'll have it because there's a lot of heavyweights that will do well among them. So that's very clear. On Infosys, my sense is it's most of these largest IT plays will probably go into a time correction, if not a price correction for the next 6 months at least till things ease out. And then they'll probably become better dividend yielding plays. So where 4%, 4.5%, wherever they are, is not a bad deal for people who are looking at the long-term accretion of dividend to portfolios. But I'm not still of the belief that IT will face some issue. Look at how Tata Elxsi got knocked up. It tells you the struggle that some of these otherwise leadership plays were enjoying. That's not available for them to grow. So we will have to be patient with the IT turnaround. But given the way the banks are leading the charge, I think that will become a very, very good play, at least in the next 3-4 months.
Got that. So time correction, maybe some price correction as well for IT. Banks looking good. I mean, ICICI Bank, amazing, right? I mean, I don't think there's been one quarter since Mr. Bakshi has taken over that the bank is disappointed. And he's kind of sort of managed to do that quarter after quarter after quarter. So let's see how this opens up this morning as well. Prakash, so many things to talk about, but let me just pick one from like a carryover from last week. The best performing large name last week was IndusInd Bank. Was up 15% in 3 days. Actually, it was all banks, to be fair. But IndusInd specifically, I mean, it's not so much a banking play, but it's a specific situation there, right? What's your sense on IndusInd?
Good morning, President. So I do agree. The findings were not as disappointing as what was anticipated, and given the fact that the management itself had anticipated the losses to be far bigger, the market already penciled that in, and it came in as a little bit of that relief. And when the entire sector is getting re-rated, it was one of the most damaged, fractured stocks. So there was a little bit of that action. But for all today the Yes Bank numbers can get a lot of people excited because everybody has this whole thing saying what's the next quick up move. And there's a lot of trading mindset that's at play, Prashant. It's not, I don't think IndusInd is being bought for a long-term, reset. It's probably a, quick recovery that everybody was anticipating, and that's played out. I wouldn't really bet on that to continue. You may have the likes of IDFC and all actually get into a little bit of a prominent trade spotlight because of the fundraise that they've done, the kind of numbers that could improve year on. Because this time around, the money is not coming from too many investors who you had to push the equity to. You got the money from just two large investors who would have seen the unit economics, seen the kind of numbers on the ground improving. So I possibly would believe that you'll have other banks feature. IndusInd probably is done its bit last week, and it was quite stellar and quite surprising to my understanding. So I would keep away from those kind of trades. But you will have these other banks which will start kind of getting into the spotlight.
Prakash, you set us up perfectly for the next question. You spoke about people wanting a quick buck, trading mindset, and something not necessarily fundamental. What's really taking place is Gensol, with the kind of price erosion that we've seen on the stock, the kind of worms that have moved, that have come out of the can, the stock down about 5%. The street believes that there are some buyers for the blue smart business. After this sort of price damage, after the news that has come by, and after the news that is likely to come by, would you advise anyone to even dabble in names like this?
Oh, absolutely not, Mangalam. See, the potential interest in buying, I don't know whether it was Eversource or somebody that I read over the weekend, would have their own reasons to, buy, and there would be assurances which you and I, as retail investors, may not be able to enjoy. And in that process, it's extremely skewed, against investors, retail investors to participate. So I think it's going to be largely a structured transaction which will have its own bells and whistles for whoever wants to buy it. Because on the other side, the existing investor base is fairly strong and influential, and I'm sure at some point in time, that part of the business could be look very differently. But the overall business doesn't make sense at all. It's a falling knife. Why do you want to kind of even hazard that, especially when there's so much of value available elsewhere?
Prakash, just a few other names I wanted your thoughts on. Last week, as the market came up, a lot of mid caps, small caps also started to recover. I don't know if you have any thoughts on names like Delivery, which was up some 15% last week. Big beaten down names, basically. SW Solar was up some 16%. There was Home First, which came up some 14%. Anything which stood out?
No, so I would look at what the underlying theme that's emerging from these moves, and not necessarily these moves in absolute terms. The fact that there will be a lot of money coming in, and you've seen FIs turn positive towards India. It's going to be primarily domestic-focused businesses. I mean, you have a Delivery which has got nothing to do with external tariffs. You've got SW Solar beaten down. We've seen how the regime is kind of looking more positive than ever before. Though there were doubts in terms of pricing of certain supplies and all of that, but the Wari renewable numbers actually tell you a very strong picture emerging. So I think essentially what's going to happen is all these domestic-facing stocks will actually get re-rated, and some of them are down 40, 50, 60% from their highs. So even if they don't go back to the highs, which I hope they don't, because that was too elevated and risky in that sense, you'll probably have a lot of the earnings catch-up happen faster here, and hence the forward PEs will start giving you that comfort. So a lot of capital will come in there. I mean, simple question, Prashant, if fresh money has to be allocated into the market, where do you put it? And it's going to be these kind of sectors and names. And that's exactly well. So you'll have a smattering of names of the next few weeks that I believe will participate. And the Nifty might not move as quickly to its new highs or closer to the earlier highs, but you'll have the broader market see a lot of this participation, and that's the opportunity.
Is there any particular thing that you like in there?
Mangalam, there are quite a few which we have narrowed down on, but to be fair, we're also kind of looking at the news flow to participate. But yes, I can tell you very simply, a lot of the PSUs are looking positive, especially in the power space. a lot of the domestic facing consumption names, discretionary consumption names, which will start perking up. You know, look at some of these FMCGs, look at some of the pharma names, and all this news flow always gives you the opportunity to buy. So that's why, you know, it's a bit tactical in terms of when to buy these stocks, even if you identify the names. So that's why I'm refraining from talking specifically about these stocks at this moment. But I think lower levels will give you that comfort in terms of the risk reward setup.
Diwan. Prakash, you spoke about a bunch of sectors and a lot of stocks as well. I want your thoughts particularly on the pharmaceutical space, because this morning there's news about Divi's Lab inking their drug supply agreement close to around 650 to 700 crores, the capex on that. And then there was Cipla as well. One of their units in Goa has been classified as a voluntary action indicated by the US FDA, which is one of the milder of the classifications, which means it is a positive. In the kind of decline that we've seen in the pharmaceutical stocks and the impending tariffs that may come for the pharmaceutical space as well as promised by Donald Trump, how do you view this space and what would your bets be here?
So, you know, I mentioned this earlier, Manglam. Pharma as a space, while it offers value, is got this massive overhang that you mentioned about of impending tariff-related announcements. Now, we really don't know whether actually tariffs come, given the way tariffs are losing their, bite in terms of being a tool to negotiate. But my sense is the best way to play pharma at this point in time, and this is a little bit of a global thing. Remember, there are lots of other positive news flow around pharma globally that's also perking up the sector in Europe, particularly. Eli Lilly's got some announcements. Even some of the Ozempic plays getting active. I would play this with the picks and shovels, theme where anybody who's looking at market reset and geographical footprints being reshuffled will benefit if you look at a company which is called Indigen in India. Again, a very unique business model. I don't think it has a peer. There are a couple of global plays, but then they are very niche in that sense. Everybody has their own strengths and niches defined. But Indigen is the one that uses a lot of intelligence, a lot of insights and input empirical data to support which drug you should be launching at what point of time, given the pipeline, given the maturity levels of that cycle. So, you know, it's a very simple business, but very complex to execute. It's simple to communicate. And I think that's the kind of business which will start seeing a lot of salience, irrespective of what happens to tariffs and some of the specific names that you mentioned. So I would play it a bit safe, and I still find a lot of value given the way it's kind of behaved after its IPO, which was just about a couple of years. So it doesn't have a great history, as in a long history. But my sense is, as institutions understand the business and get empirical data or some track record to build on, you'll probably see a lot of interest in this. So keep a watch. Let's hope they deliver the numbers that are being anticipated. My allocation to pharma is probably restricted only this name yet.
Thank you, Prakash, for your thoughts and joining us on this Monday morning.